Hello everyone, my name is Executioner Thal, um, and I want to talk about the Tahm Kench changes on PBE upcoming. I just want to make a discussion because, I'm not feeling great about the changes, and I feel like it's a good thing to discuss. I've played a lot of Tahm Kench, mostly in support. I do not have much reason for him for top lane and jungle. Will probably still be about the same for some of these changes, but I did want to bring that up. I have a lot of points on him, as you can see. I've been playing him since launch, love the character, and, well, there's the reason I'm doing this video right now. So, here we go. So these are the changes on PBE. I just went through his Twitter. He's got base stats here I'm going to talk about in this intro. So, his health, yeah, okay. But I guess I should first mention is the fact that Tahm Kench role as a support, at least, is to be a tank. He builds tank items, he builds utility tank items, Locket, Avaran Solari, Knight's Vow, and just stuff like that. And his ideal position is to interrupt the enemies, keep them at bay, devour allies to tank for them, ignore CC, bring them out of a fight so that they're not a focused target, or even eat enemies to catch them out and put them in bad positions. That's how he feels right now. That's what you're supposed to do as him. Mini Devour isn't really useful, maybe for wave clear, maybe for killing supers. That's about it, though. So base stat changes are he's getting a little bit more health, but 60, losing 2 health growth, and gaining 10 move speed, which is really good as far as Tahm Kench's early game, because Tahm Kench really, really lacks health after a lot of nerfs he had a while ago. So I think these base stat changes are great, because, he's really lacking in stats early. Despite this, he can't really do much early anyways. What can he do? He can use Devour without his Q, which is pretty much impossible unless someone stands still. He can use Q, which is just a slow, unless he happens to get 3 hits and then stun you. And his E's offline, so he can't really tank much anyway. So, it's okay changes. It doesn't really do much. If anything, it actually makes his late game technically worse with the 2 less health growth. But it's not an insane, and I think it's just they want to make sure that the extra 60 health, isn't going anywhere insane. So yeah, I guess we'll start with the passive. So passive changes, for those of you who don't know, I guess anytime Tahm Kench damages you with a damaging ability that's not the spit out on enemy Devour, so Tahm Kench's auto attacks, Tahm Kench's Q, Tahm Kench's minion spit, all those damaging abilities will apply a stack of acquired taste. So right now, depending on how many stacks they have, Tahm Kench will do bonus damage scaling with his maximum health. And this scaling with his max health actually changed depending on how far you were in the game based on level. So as you can see there, the bonus damage was 1.25 to 1.75 from levels 1 to set 13. And now it's just being 1.5 at all levels, which is actually a buff to early game and technically a nerf to late game. Granted, Tahm Kench's damage has always been really good, and the fact that it's still innate to his max health is really good. That's a really good scaling. Why not, right? You're tanky as shit, and you also deal bonus damage based on how tanky you are is innately just good. And so this is kind of a burf to both support and top. I'm mostly going to focus on support. This doesn't really do much, and that's it. So next is the Q change. So Tongue Lash. Tongue Lash is the skill shot that he throws out. And he just whips his tongue at you and it stops in the first thing hit. It slows the target and stuns if they're at 3 stacks. You get the idea. So slow duration is increased by 0.5, which is actually pretty big. 2 seconds of that slow is pretty dangerous, especially when Tahm Kench builds approach velocity. Because he'll just run at you faster, be able to stack more, maybe even get a Devour in, maybe get another stun in, which goes in tangent with the cooldown buff, which makes it online a lot more. It's not 4 seconds anymore at late game, but it's still 5 seconds at the whole game is a pretty big buff in general. Because most of its use, apart from late game, is just harassing, right? So that's really good. To my knowledge, the mana cost isn't changed, so it'll be really spammable. The range is increased by 50. I'm not so sure about this. The range on it's pretty good already at 800. And you keep in mind, Tahm Kench is a slow champ. Tahm Kench is a very low range champ. Like, this is literally his only range option apart from his ult, which is just a slow teleport. So I don't see much reason to add 50 range. I guess this will help him, have more options to do enemies from a little bit further away. And the slow is increased early game, so it's 20% better earlier at rank, and that's skill level. So right now with level, you're gaining increased slow per level on ranking Q. You're gaining no cooldown changes anymore because... Or no, sorry. I looked at the cooldown change wrong. I apologize. It's 8 to 4 seconds now. It's not just 5 seconds globally, so... Maxing Q is still useful because you want that online pretty much at all times because it's just such a good tool. That's actually a really good change on cooldown. I take that back. I looked at it backwards. My bad. So, yeah, it'll be 8 seconds early. That's actually really good. That's a really good change because it's pretty spammable. The fact that it goes to 4 seconds late game, though, is actually problematic because, to my knowledge, the stun is still 1.5 or 2 seconds. So, you have 2 seconds to get out before he just stuns you again. So I'm not sure about that, but it makes his Q better. His Q's, yeah, this is just a general buff. I don't see, like, even if that nerfs early game with the 5 seconds to 8, that's still, because you max it anyway. So yeah, that'll be something. That's Q. So Tahm Kench CCs you better with Q. That's what I see in that. W changes. So W is the biggest problem. The Tahm Kench. It's the thing that makes it most unique. It's Devour. So, yeah. I guess we'll go into the changes, and then I'll talk about... Yeah, I'll talk about, basically, what are my thoughts on it. So, right now, Tahm Kench is grounded and slowed by 95% when devouring any champion. So, this includes ally champions. It refunds 50% of the cost on devouring an enemy, so I'm assuming that means mana. It just is of cost, so I'm assuming that's mana. The cost, so mana cost, yeah, is 60, so now it's 100 mana, which is pretty big. I mean, 60 is already really big, but 100. The cooldown, alright, is changed, so it's 20 at all ranks. That's correct this time, 20 at all ranks, okay. That's actually really big, because it's not half a minute anymore, but it's 20 seconds at all points of the game. If you eat an enemy, I'm assuming it's still halved, because they don't say they removed it here. So yeah, if you eat an enemy, it'll be 10 seconds now. But if you eat an ally, it's 20 seconds. Minion damage. They nerfed the minion damage. I'm not really sure why. I never seen Minion Devour as ever really a good option. Especially since they're making it a higher... Well, they did... I was going to say, especially since they're making it a higher mana cost, I don't see why they're nerfing the damage, but they kind of aren't, because you still get the 50% mana refund, so it would only be 50 mana, so yeah. I guess maybe that's why they're nerfing it, so the minion damage doesn't get insane. That makes sense, actually. Some of these changes I've kind of just seen, to be completely honest, but I was mostly focused on the changes I'm going to talk about in a second. Champion damage was reduced by a lot. Wait. Oh, maybe it just added the base. Okay, so the base damage has been added in, but reducing how much of the enemy's max health, which makes sense. I mean, Tahm Kench's W does do quite a lot of damage, and those flat numbers are actually pretty big. So, yeah. So yeah, I guess we'll talk about Devour change now. So, Devour's always been quite a weird ability for support. Because think about it. They both have trade-offs. Right now, when you use an enemy Devour, you're making that enemy untargetable. All you're really wanting to do with it is like one of three things. One, you're wanting to do damage, which makes sense. You eat them, you immediately spit them out, and you do your max health damage. That's really good. It can be good. It can help for finishing off targets and putting them in a bad spot. The other thing that I think is super underrated, but is super strong nonetheless, is delaying enemy champions. Let's say a Jax is rampaging through your whole team and he finds a really good flank. If you don't think your team will really need you, a good option is to straight up just apply your 3 stacks on that Jax, eat him whole, and keep him in your belly as long as you can. Like, you don't even spit him out early. It's literally just delay him so your team can clean up their team, and then like he's just in a 1v5. Which is really strong when it comes to stuff like Aatrox, who kind of relies on his ult to get him his revive. If you can just literally delay him so that his ult's gone. Same with Tryndamere, actually. And yeah, other than that, it's just wombo combos by spinning them into like Yasuo tornadoes, or just, you know, because you can cancel their movement abilities by devouring. But that's some really high level stuff, and that's very, very hard CC. In general, it's just better to Q enemies when they're 3 stacks, so you can get the stun, so allies can still hit them, you name it. Ally Devour, on the other hand, is still like a trade-off, even right now. Even right now, there is still a massive trade-off to it, and especially with certain champions like Vladimir, who kind of rely on being at the fringe of death before he gets the big Q, which heals him for half his health. But like, Ally Devour has always been a weird utility. It's never been really good, and that's what's the problem with these changes, is that Tahm Kench already, even in pro play, even in solo queue, right now he's pretty much the only like chance you really want to pick him is if you need a tank, and if you need like a counter pick to hard CC. Like if they have a Morgana and like you have, I don't know, a Kindred, or not, Kindred's a bad example. If you have like a Quinn who's always going to get hit by this Morgana Q, like, you're going to want that Tahm Kench to just devour him and take him to safety. Like, that is few the reasons why you'd want to pick Tahm Kench right now. He has really inconsistent CC. He has CC that takes time to build up. Like, it's not instant, like, Alistar knock-up or old Taric E. But what I'm trying to say is, like, Tahm Kench doesn't do much apart from that really strong utility. And the fact that they're making it so that Ally Devour is worse in so many more ways than I realized. Like, so you're grounded, so you can't flash anymore. You're slowed, so you're slower than dismounted Kled, and it's basically the same as doubly Devour on enemy, so that's cool. And it costs a higher mana cost, which is, like, absolutely absurd. Like, that is really, like, pushing the idea of Tahm Kench being a support anymore. There's very little reason. Like, the only thing I see for that, like, counter pick now is Morgana Qs the ally, and then Tahm Kench eats him and spits him out. That's it. I don't even think it cleanses them anyway. I think it just wears off and he spits them out. So, like, not that it cleansed before, but the point is, like, there's not much reason anymore. Like, you can't say Ally Devour for an escape is a viable option anymore, because you're crippling yourself and you're crippling the ally in you. There's no reason for it, and it's absolutely absurd. I've made hundreds of plays playing Tahm Kench, eating an ally, doing damage, building up the stun, because I can still move freely like a normal champion while eating an ally, and then I get the stun, spit him out, and we finish them off. Stuff like that, and that's really cool. Like, even like Flash is helpful. I mean, yeah, I could understand that, and even I could understand making him grounded so he can't flash. But also, the 95% slow is ridiculous. I actually tried on PBE, eating an ally having, like, mobility boots. Sorry, not mobility boots, Swifty shoes, which reduces slows on you. And it doesn't feel any better, like, nearly viable or anything good. So that's, yeah. This, in my opinion, makes Ally Devour very questionable, pretty much in general. The only time I see it useful is to literally stop incoming damage, but that's about it. You're also a sitting duck for every champion that likes targets that can barely move. So think of Alawi. Tahm Kench eats someone in the middle of an Alawi ult, he's screwed. There's nothing he can do. He can't dodge. He can't, so yeah, I can see that. And Tahm Kench is a good tank, yeah, but he's still a champion. He's not a Tryndamere with ult, so it's not like he's gonna be able to make these sick plays. I mean, his E will help, and especially with the buffs that are below, but still, I don't think it'll be that good, and I don't think it'll make him a good pick anymore at all, because right now, I think his win rate's already really low. On U.GG, I'm fairly certain he's got like a 45% win rate. Like, I can literally just bring it up in a second. But I don't see much reason to even need an ally anymore. There really isn't. The fact that they had trade-offs and differences in Enemy Devour, like, because I'll name them out. So in Enemy Devour, I mentioned there was delaying the target, there was dealing damage, and there was repositioning them. In an ally Devour, there were 3 things. Tanking for them, which was okay half the time, because you have to realize, eating an ally too takes them out of a fight. They can't do anything, they can't use abilities. It's helpful if they're on cooldowns, so their cooldowns can be, go off cooldown and whatnot. And there was repositioning them, and there was tanking for them, and there was, just essentially cleansing CC off them because you're repositioning them. Now it just, hey, they're not a sitting duck, I guess. They're even a different sitting duck who can't move, and, you tank damage from, and that's it. So his win rate's 42% according to U.GG in solo queue. This is NA to my knowledge, so yeah. But a player like me has only played on NA. I've not played on Korea. Pretty much only play solo queue. I don't look up much pro play, so I can't really hold an opinion to pro play in general. I just know he's a consistent pick for the fact that he's a counter to a lot of CC champs. But to my knowledge, he's not like a crazy win rate in pro play, just that great utility for those ADCs, and that's about it. So that's what I know. I can't really judge there. I can't go crazy in depth talking about that, like someone like LS or other really, really good analyzers. So fortunately, I can just give my opinion and my thoughts on these. So now that Devour changes out of the way, let's talk about E-changes. So E-changes are remove the mana cost on thick skin, damage taken converted to gray health. So this is basically, because right now it's 70 to 90%. So rank 1 of thick skin, 70% of all damage you take turns into gray health, which is, so 70% of damage you take can be a shield whenever you activate it. Now, from rank 1 to rank 5, it's 80 to 100%, which is a really good buff, actually. I mean, at rank 5, 100, all damage you take can be turned into a shield is pretty strong. And I can imagine Kenches with a lot of health being really annoying to take out when focused. I can imagine buying Stoneplate on this guy, doubling your health and getting a massive shield. I don't know. Next is Gray Health healing conversion is increased by about 5% per rank, which is actually really good. So you're getting a higher percent of all damage you take turned into Gray Health, and a higher percent of that Gray Health being healed back to normal, which will make his laning a little bit nicer, especially against Poke, which is his counter. These are okay changes. The mana cost, I think, is the biggest one, next to 100% at rank 5, but this still doesn't do much, in my opinion. I'm assuming they're doing this because Tahm Kench is now a sitting duck when using Devour on allies, so they really want to emphasize the tanking damage for the ally rather than, abducting them and taking them to a safer spot. But yeah, that's all I can really comment on the E-changes. It's good, but it's kind of too late for stuff like this, and it's kind of lackluster in my opinion. Really, it's a good change, but it doesn't do much with the W changes in my eyes. R change. You change the title. R change. So Abyssal Voyage is the teleport with Tahm Kench. I didn't mention the E is the shield he can get off damage taken, but you kind of got the idea. So R change, Abyssal Voyage. The range is decreased early game by half, pretty much half. That's close enough half. For the sake of consistency, half, and then late game it's increased by half. So, yep, makes sense. I mean, Tahm Kench doesn't really use ult much early other than to gank people, so the fact that they're weakening kind of his annoying presence of being able to teleport an ally behind you in lane makes sense. It makes him less of an oppressive bully in some matches, I guess. It does make his late game playmaking even better, which is great, so that's great. I always think Tahm Kench's ult should have better range than Ryze's ult, because if it didn't, then Ryze's ult, why would you compare them? Right? Because Tahm Kench only get teleport one ally, Ryze can teleport multiple, Ryze needs to be CC, Tahm Kench just needs to be damaged, him or his ally, so yeah. And the cooldown got nerfed, so yeah, it's increased by about 20 and 10 seconds, which is fine, honestly. It's not, oh my god, these things up every 30 seconds, that's OP, which it kind of would be, actually, but what I'm trying to say is that it isn't a crazy change, and it's whatever. I don't see the reason for it, personally, but whatever, sure. That I don't really have much comments on that. Alright. So I just want to go into final thoughts now. I'm going to keep this up in general, but I have a couple ideas before I talk about my opinions finally. So I have some ideas to change around Tahm Kench's W, because right now, if these changes go live, I see very, very little reason to even remotely bother eating an ally, as in like very tiny, like specific situations, and I feel that it's not a viable option at all. So some ideas I essentially had is, if you eat an ally, like if they want to keep this slow, they really want to keep this grounded 95% slow, I feel like if you eat an ally, you should get either damage reduction as Tahm Kench, or you should get armor and MR stats, kind of like Braum, because with Braum W's, because and I know a lot of people will look at this and say, Thel, what the hell are you talking about? Tahm Kench already has his E, and he'll already have his tank items. Why should a Tahm Kench get even more for just because he ate an ally? And couldn't Tahm Kench abuse this? You know, just like, I need to be tanky, let me eat our Moo or some shit like that. And the reason for that is because you need to benefit Kench, and you need to give him the opportunity to make these Devours worth it at this point. The fact that he could freely roam, and before he got move speed for eating an ally. So right now, like now it's you're able to freely move really fast. Before, then you were able to just move normally, which was still good. I mean, you could just reposition an ally or just, you know, save him from a bad spot. Now, like, come on, there's not much. You need to make it worth it, is what I'm saying, especially with the higher mana cost. And yeah, like, so either give him, in my opinion, damage reduction, or give him some armor MR, because Tahm Kench isn't going to be able to do anything. He's not going to be able to walk up and hit people, or Q them, or chase people down, at least anymore, for sure. I wonder if this will make Phase Rush Kench good again. It might, with the slow resistance, but who the fuck knows? I'd have to test that, actually. I might test that after this. Nonetheless, so yeah, that was my idea. If they wanted to keep this movement speed, my other idea was to simply revert the move speed, and maybe not the ground. If honestly, I'd be fine if they kept the ground in, because flashing with Devour's kind of out there. Like, that's kind of really, really strong. You're literally saving your ally at their flash, which in pro play is probably huge, and in general is huge. But so I can understand if they kept, you know, the ground in, but if they wanted to revert the move speed, I feel like if they really still want to hit Devour, they could lower its duration. And now I know, and this will definitely affect pro play, because I feel like what's strong in pro play, and what a lot of people are seeing with Broken, or what they seem to like, at least from my view as someone who barely watches pro play, but inspecting on the champions, like, think about it. I'm going to bring up two more champions, and that's Akali and Aatrox. And those are champions that have been notorious recently for how well they've been able to do. So with Akali, it's Twilight Shroud, and it'll always be Twilight Shroud. And I think Akali's a fun champion that is a very high skill ceiling that I don't think people recognize at all. But more importantly, the fact that Twilight Shroud can delay, like, a long time. Like, right now, it's 10 seconds. You can get 10 seconds of stealth. And granted, you can still throw skill shots in there, but I'm assuming a good player will be able to path very well. They might get hit, but nonetheless, they can deny, I don't know, a Xin Zhao from using his auto attacks, which is really strong. They can delay and find the perfect time to strike. Then comes Aatrox. Aatrox's ultimate guarantees him a revive, assuming he dies during it. And granted, there's a lot of fights where he dies during it, or he does all his damage to you and yells at you. Like, so there's not really, it's a kind of a win-win situation for him. Not to mention, when he gets a revive, he can move freely while having that, I think it's like 5-second revive, so that also delays how much time he has to live. And if he buys a GA, Aatrox is going to be alive for so long in a fight, even if he's the front line. He's just going to be, all right, we're waiting on revive, we're fighting everyone else, and like, because a lot of team fights end up being, you take out targets one by one, and then it's just numbers disadvantage. But with those champions, they kind of just keep delaying the inevitable, and then they awkwardly kind of win the fight. And Tahm Kench is no different. He can delay how long a champion can stay in the fight. Like an ally ADC is caught out, Tahm Kench devours them over the wall or something, and then just runs away with them. And Like, the cooldown nerf help, but I feel like if they want to keep the move speed, nerfing the duration might help tone down at least how long a Tahm Kench can keep him in the belly. But that's just my opinion. I can't test any of these changes. These are just changes I can throw out. One last change I did want to make as a resident solo queue player, you know, the disgusting trash I am, is the fact that Tahm Kench Ally Devour needs a tooltip. It needs a tooltip for the ally. In pro play, it's fine. They know how the game works, but everyone who plays solo queue does not look up. They do not research. They do not understand how any champions work, how their synergy works. Tahm Kench is... So what I'm trying to say is when an ally gets devoured by Tahm Kench, there needs to be an ability on the screen that says regurgitate or whatever it's called, where it's saying spit me out. Because right now, if you're the ally after like a second or two of being in Tahm Kench's stomach or mouth or whatever, they just need to right click anywhere. And in that direction, where whenever they right click, is Tahm Kench will forcibly spit them out. And that's what happens. It happens so often. People don't use the whole duration, even if it saves their lives. They just refuse to use the whole situation. And it can be really frustrating as someone who likes to play Tahm Kench with random people, and even with people I know, and I remind them that's how it works, and they still forget. And I don't see the reason why Riot hasn't made this better. This is... I don't see why they don't make this change other than bugs, because apparently that's the original reason they got rid of it. But I'm sure they can get past it. And I don't know if they have been working on it. I hope they have. If they haven't, then, like, what's going on? Like, just add a skill shot similar to Callista. Callista's ult does the same thing. Imagine if Callista's ult didn't have that. New players who just get Callista ulta would have no idea what they're doing. And the fact that it's Callista's ultimate makes it all worthwhile and memorable compared to Tahm Kench's base ability. So, yeah, I've had too many times where someone just gets spit out into a Xerath queue, and it's like, great, why'd you do that? And then they blame me, and I spit them out, and it's just a mess, and I don't think it needs to be a mess. And there might be players who say, well, just get good, and tell your players to look at the wiki, or stuff like that, but why even bother? Just, there's, to my knowledge, at least, a very quick and simple fix, unless it causes more bugs, which, I mean, we don't need more bugs in League of Legends, but I think it's a quality of life thing that doesn't seem like a lot, but goes a long way. And that's simply my final thoughts on these changes to Tahm Kench. He's a fun champion that I enjoy. I will definitely play him after these changes go live, unless they change him, and even if they change him, I'll still play him. He's a fun champ. This really, in my opinion, just restricts what he can do already. He's already kind of a mediocre champ because he kind of does one thing really well and has some other things he kind of does well. He's kind of snowbally in the hands of a right player and in the hands of an enemy team that doesn't understand that, because he can actually be quite the abusive bully in lane, especially with Glacial Augment. And yeah, that's just my thoughts. If you want to follow what I do, I won't be making too many of these types of videos. Only when the time comes I might feel the need to make one of these. I do stream on Twitch at twitch.tv/executioner_thel, all lowercase. I'll leave a link in the description. I do stream a lot of League. I try to be funny, and sometimes I rage, but you know, I'm kind of trying to tone that down at the moment. I will try and stream more games in the future, stuff like Metroid, Indivisible, perhaps some Sekiro, more Sekiro. I need to finish that game, maybe some Dark Souls, maybe even some fighting games. And yeah, that's all I need to plug. I mean, I have not much to plug. But yeah, so my name's Executioner Thel, and that's my thoughts on the Tahm Kench changes. Thank you for watching. Have a good day.